The Harley Davidson Motor Company has been manufacturing motorcycles since 1903. Now, here to talk about this fabulous company are Willie G. Davidson, grandson of one of the founders, and Tom Bolfert, Director of Archives for Harley Davidson. They're my very special guests next on I Remember Milwaukee.
I Remember Milwaukee is brought to you in part by Elsa's on the Park, named in honor of Elsa Kopp, a German immigrant who started her own business in 1950. Elsa's on the Park has been serving Milwaukee since 1980.
Hi, I'm Jim Peck. Welcome to I Remember Milwaukee. Joining me tonight is Willie G. Davidson, grandson of one of the founders of Harley Davidson. He's Vice President of Styling for Harley Davidson. Also joining us is Tom Bolfert, Director of Archives for the company. 1998 marks the 95th anniversary of this great company. It all started with an idea to take the effort out of bicycling. Take a look.
Four men, three brothers and a friend, began a legacy in Milwaukee that continues to this day. They invented and manufactured a motorcycle. It was 1903 when William Harley, William, Walter, and Arthur Davidson decided to team their skills and love for motorized vehicles to develop a new enterprise. By 1907, the company was well underway. Then the early Harley Davidson had taken on the nickname Silent Gray Fellow, gray being the standard color for the motorcycles. The company's aim was to keep motorcycling a quiet activity. Customers chose the motorcycles for recreation and racing competitions, but the Harley-Davidson motorcycles also played major roles in the two world wars. Scouting and dispatch work helped the business grow, and its reputation overseas grow as well. The company has experienced ups and downs since then, but continues to enjoy a loyal following. Harley-Davidson also has become a major player in national fundraising efforts for charities. In recent years, the Harley-Davidson reunions in Milwaukee have drawn thousands of people from all over the country and from all walks of life. The pride in Made in America continues to be shared by the company's fans.
Excuse me for being enthusiastic. Like everybody in this city, I'm a great Harley fan.
It's infectious.
It is. Tell me, who were the original Harleys and Davidsons?
There were three Davidsons and a single Harley. The friends, all of them, got together in 1903 and basically put an engine in a bicycle.
Now, what were they doing prior to putting the engine in the bicycle?
They were draftsmen, designers. My grandfather worked in the Milwaukee Railroad shop, so they had pattern making experience. They had drafting, design, engineering talents, and they got together and built a bike.
Yeah, there's kind of an interesting story there because the two original founders were William Harley and Arthur Davidson. They were school buddies, and they tinkered around trying to build his first motorcycle. Then they wrote to Walter Davidson, who was working in Kansas City, and said, "Hey, Walter, why don't you come to Milwaukee and take a ride on this motorcycle?" So Walter came for a family wedding, only to discover that this motorcycle only existed on paper. So he quit his job to help him, and a lot of purists kind of credit that as the real beginning of Harley-Davidson Motor Company, which I believe is April 28th, 1903.
Wow.
And then a little bit later, Willie G's grandfather, William A. Davidson, joined the company as the fourth founder.
Now, there were three Davidsons and one Harley.
Correct.
So why does Harley get top billing? Why isn't it Davidson Harley?
Everybody asks that question.
Well, I'm no different.
And we have no idea.
I see.
I read a story once that because William Harley was an engineer and he really did a lot of the design work, that the Davidson family, even though they outnumbered him 3-1, thought, well, he should get top billing. It could have easily been Davidson Harley, and they'd be calling them Davidsons instead of Harleys.
Yeah, So you have 50,000 people with Davidsons showing up in town. I don't know. It has such a ring to it. Now, how long? First of all, would I have recognized that original motorcycle as a motorcycle?
You'd recognize it as a motorcycle, but you'd certainly see that it is totally different from anything that we produce today.
What was it like?
Well, it has a spindly look about it. I mean, it has large diameter wheels. The engine, relative to proportions, is very small. It's a handsome relationship of mechanical parts, but it's very Spartan, sparse.
But even in those days, Harleys today are known as being overly built. They're bulletproof. They're been equated to tractors with stump pulling torque. But even in 1903, that first motorcycle was built more strongly or stronger than any of its competitors.
Yeah, because there were other motorcycles.
Oh yeah, there was quite a number. Most of them were just engines and a bicycle frame. The Harleys and Davidsons initially designed a frame that wrapped around the engine, and the engine became an integral part of the motorcycle and really strengthened it, made it stronger than it had to be for that size motor. And that is really something that's carried on to this day.
Why did they do that?
Their very first one really was an engine and a bicycle frame, and the frames were breaking. And a lot of the competitors' motorcycle frames were breaking because of the types of roads they had in those days, dirt roads or cobblestones, and they were brutal on early equipment. So they wanted something that was bulletproof, and they built it. In fact, one of their very, very first motorcycles in 1903, they tracked it for the next 10 years, and it logged 100,000 miles with no major repairs.
Amazing.
Wow.
They tracked it through 4 or 5 different owners. It was incredible.
Now,
And we now have that motorcycle.
you do.
And it's in a glass enclosure in the entry to our factory, our building on Juneau Avenue.
Now, jumping ahead just for a second, 95 years, is that going to be on display at the big reunion?
No, it'll stay in our lobby. It's priceless.
Yeah.
I would think so.
We have it insured for $2 million.
No kidding.
Irreplaceable.
We don't like to move that one too often.
It's a wonder it isn't in the Smithsonian by now.
No, we have more of a use for it than they do. It's home where it belongs.
Now, about 1903, cars were just kind of getting started also. Was that competition for the motorcycle?
Not at first, because cars were very, very expensive and they were hand-built. It wasn't until Henry Ford perfected the assembly line and he would manage to bring prices down, where cars now were about the same price as a motorcycle.
Right. What was a motorcycle cost back then, by the way?
In the around 1920, a motorcycle was about $300, $350 right in there.
Right. That's a fairly substantial amount of money back then.
Right.
And I think the original was really designed as a people mover.
What do you mean?
Well, it was transportation. Right now, a motorcycle is purchased with discretionary income. It's fun. It's a sport. It's hobby. And I think in '03, which was a milestone year, you had the Wright brothers, you had Harley Davidson, and you had the Ford Motor Company. They all began in '03.
Wow.
And so a lot of exciting things were going on then. But I think our motorcycle became less of a people mover when we reached parity with the Model T Ford, which was mass produced. So then we had a price situation that created some choices.
Right.
Now, 1903, the boys got together, if you'll pardon me, and made a motorcycle.
Right.
How long did it take before they started making motorcycles, enough motorcycles to make a living at it?
Well, by 1905, they were making 16 motorcycles. By 1906, they made 50, so they're making one a week. 1907, they made 150. So they started out in a 10 by 15 foot shack in the backyard of his great-grandfather, William C. Davidson. There's been 5 Williams with the company.
Yeah.
William C., William A., William H., his father, William G., and William J. So there's a lot
That's
of
why
Williams.
I'm Willie G.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of equity in the William name. And of course, then it was William Harley. But their first factory was a 10 by 15 foot shack, and they built their first couple of machines. And they doubled the size to a 10 by 30, and then it got a little bit bigger after that. And then in 1906 or 07, we moved to our present site. The original factory was where one of Miller Brewery's new buildings are on Highland. And in 1906 or 07, we bought the land where we currently are, which was, it's on Juneau, but it used to be called Chestnut Street in those days. And they built a factory, and in less than a year they tore it down, built a bigger one. Less than a year, tore it down. Sometimes they were tearing it down as they were building it. And our current building was started about 1912.
But in the same location.
Same
Yes.
location.
Yes.
We are a Milwaukee company.
Right.
100%.
Right.
And we were talking just before we went on the air that some of your people stay with you for a long time. You were
Oh,
telling me about
yes.
one fellow who
Yes,
retired.
Yes, there was a fellow retired in the early 80s, Joe Geiger. Remember
Geiger.
Joe?
Sure.
He
do.
started out as the secretary, the male secretary to, I think, Arthur Davidson, when he was 18 or 19, and he worked there for over 63 years before he
amazing.
retired.
Wow.
Incredible. Incredible. And we just had someone retire, I think, a few months ago who had put in 50 years.
Well, Rolly, who was in our electrical department,
Yes.
50 years, still going strong.
That's right,
Doesn't
he's still
have
in.
any idea of leaving that great
You
company.
just won't let him out.
And he rides
and
his
he wants
motorcycle.
to stay.
And he rides a
which is
motorcycle.
great.
To
Oh,
work,
yeah.
yes.
Now, is that common, by the way? Do a lot of the people who ride
oh,
bikes?
yeah.
Absolutely.
Is it okay to call him a bike?
Sure.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Sure.
I don't want to get anybody
No, we're fine.
angry with me. Now, I thought one of these would be the person I heard referred to as the silent gray fellow, but that's something else, isn't it?
That was early history.
What's that?
That referred to a color and the fact that they were quiet in that time frame, and so that was a fond marketing name of our early model.
Now, that is not something on which a premium is placed now. The quietness of it. I mean, you think of a Harley, you think of that particular sound as you do that to the gas.
Well, I think there's three things about a Harley Davidson that are near and dear and mean a lot to the customers and enthusiasts, and that's look, sound, and feel. And anybody who's ridden a Harley, spent time on one, will completely understand what I'm talking about.
Did you grow up riding Harleys?
Yes.
How old were you when you had your first one?
I was 14.
Wow.
And
Everybody in your school must have been green with envy.
yeah, I think there were a lot of green people.
I would have been. A 14-year-old with a Harley, what was that like?
Well, it's been a great ride my entire life.
Were you careful?
Yes, I'm
Damn.
in good shape and have a lot of respect for the product, and it's been as I say, a great ride all these years.
Harleys went to war in World War I. How did that happen? What were they like? What got developed out of it?
Well, that was an interesting time. There was a great national fervor at that time, and really our association with the military went back to 1916 when Pancho Villa was raiding the Texas border towns, and General Pershing sent a telegram to Harley Davidson and says, I need motorcycles to chase this guy. So the very next day, I think we had 8 motorcycles on a train on their way to Texas.
No kidding.
And we followed up with some more after that, and they chased them around through the desert on motorcycles. Never caught them, though. Of course, the war broke out, or we entered the war in 1917, and we devoted about half of our 1917 production to World War I, to the U.S. military, and virtually all of the 1918 production, which was kind of different than our chief competitor at the time, which was Indian motorcycles, because they really devoted all their production to the military, and the riders and the dealers suffered as a result, and they lost a lot of loyalty. We, on the other hand, felt that our riders and our dealers deserved our loyalty, so we kept making civilian motorcycles.
How were the motorcycles that went to war different from the ones I would have seen on the streets?
They didn't have striping.
That was it?
That was about it. That was
Now,
about
the
it.
ones I remember seeing in movies always had sidecars. When did the sidecar come in, and what was it used for?
Oh boy, the sidecar goes back almost to the very beginning of Harley Davidson, 1905.
Oh, really?
But someone else made it, we didn't. We actually came out with a sidecar, I believe, in the early teens, but someone else was making it. We came out in 1903 with our first motorcycle, basically, but the aftermarket started almost the same time we did.
Right.
I've seen pictures of 1905 Harleys with custom forks on them.
Wow.
To put suspension on the front. In fact, by 1907, we adopted that same fork, which was called a Sager cushion fork with spring action in it.
Now, the Harleys I've seen pictures of in the military had machine guns on them.
There were special specifications for different models for the Army, and so we had all kinds of bulletproof panels and different sidecars and different lighting and colors and all sorts of
When you look at
devices.
somebody riding a Harley and you see him riding a sidecar, do you consider him a wimp?
No, I just think
Just between the two of us.
As long as they're out in the wind having a good time, one-on-one with nature on that open vehicle, any way they want to ride it, with or without a sidecar, it's fine. I hope, as long as they have a big smile and they're enjoying it, that's great.
Obviously, you've never ridden a bike with a sidecar. It is not as easy as you think.
No.
It's
Really?
It's harder than a solo motorcycle.
I was wondering about that because the balance always seemed very strange to me.
The balance is there, but it exerts different forces on the motorcycle. And with the motorcycle, if you go into a curve, the bike leans into it.
Right.
With a sidecar, it leans out. And the sidecar, if you go too fast into a curve, actually lifts off the ground. And if you turn to the left, the sidecar digs in. So all the handling changes. It's a difference between a sports car and a truck to some degree. What did you say?
Still fun, though.
It's still fun. It's still a motorcycle,
yeah.
but it's different.
Still fun.
But you'd want somebody sitting in that sidecar for ballast, I would
Right.
think, if no other reason. You
Right.
don't want to drive that around empty.
No.
Now, when did the police start using motorcycles?
Oh, that goes back to
way
about
back.
1908. I think the Detroit Police Department was the first to use Harleys.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Until I got ready for the show, I had no idea that things went back that long.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. The history is very convoluted. There's a lot of side roads, and paths, and dead ends.
As you'd expect with a motorcycle, of
Right.
course.
I mean, 95 years strong. We've made literally 1,000 different models, perhaps, in that time period. And if you roll in colors, tens of thousands of different models.
Have you made any mistakes?
Never.
Really? Willie, I don't know. You were
Well,
thinking
I
about
think
that.
I think the important thing about our company is that we had management that was they had knowledge, and they were riders, and they knew the market, and they made more right moves than wrong moves. I think certainly they made mistakes, but I think this company has survived wars and depressions and ups and downs, economic situations, and it's a great credit to the individuals who started it and the subsequent management teams to survive all of these things. 95 years, when you consider the number of major companies around that can even think about that longevity, you're talking about a pretty rare animal. We're very proud of that.
Were you raised to go into this business?
No, my father was never like that.
No?
He recognized that I had an interest, and the door was certainly open. My interest has always been the world of design, and I'm responsible for the way our vehicles look. But I had that interest early in high school. I went to design school on the West Coast, and I worked for a number of different design houses before I joined HD. So it wasn't an open door with my name on it, but I have to say I'm glad I made the choice to join the company. It's been a great time.
So are we.
Yeah, thanks, man.
You mentioned, we'll have a group sing in just a minute here, yes. You mentioned the Depression. It must have been very, very difficult. How did Harley Davidson handle the Depression? What happened, and how did you get through it?
Well, the sales certainly plummeted, and it was kind of interesting because in our great collection of early Harley Davidsons, there's a 1933 HD, which has the most elaborate hand-done paint job of a flying bird type shape, and then our name directly below it. And that was painted because we were in financial trouble, and we had to spark the market with an exotic or a strong visual on the fuel tank. So you look at all our early models, and they're olive drab, and they're silver and gray, and they're just our name, but all of a sudden this bird jumps out at you.
Yeah.
So, that's Depression time. We were trying to spark sales with that design.
If I could put that into perspective, in about 1921 we made, I believe, like 26,000 motorcycles, and almost 17,000 of those motorcycles had sidecars. And during the course of our history, there were about 150 U.S. competitors to Harley Davidson. 1933, which was the height of the Depression, the whole industry in the U.S. sold 6,000 motorcycles. We sold 3,700. And part of it
So
was...
you were better than half of the entire market.
Well, most of the companies had dropped out at that point. There was just a few companies left, but still, the whole industry was down to 6,000. And like Bill said, that very beautiful 33 with that Art Deco tank logo was part of it, because up to that point it was all olive green, and that was the first year we came out with two-tone colors as a standard option, or standard colors, with that very elaborate eagle's head. It's my favorite motorcycle. It's beautiful.
Are there certain, and I hadn't thought of this till a second, but are there certain Harley, certain years that are more collectible than others?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, sure.
I assume that would be one. What are some of the other ones?
There are certain milestone models. I mean, the first V-twin was in 1909. And you had more current motorcycles that the street names, you're probably aware of Knucklehead, Panhead, Shovelhead.
I'd rather you hadn't looked at me and started with Knucklehead if you don't mind. When did the side thing start? The leathers and the I notice you're wearing a fabulous watch, and I assume that's a Harley Davidson watch.
Yeah, it's a nice watch, and I wish our company had its trademark.
Now tell me it isn't. Well, you can tell this show is not rehearsed, friends. But when did all that stuff start?
I have photographs in my personal collection of early gatherings of riders. I think one of them's in front of Pikes Peak, and it's in the early teens. And they're all wearing these Harley Davidson jerseys, and they have the little cloth caps and goggles, and so we were really in the functional clothing business, I think, back at the beginning of time.
Yeah, mid-teens at the latest. About 1913, 14, we really started getting into this type of thing, and it was horsehide jackets and the jerseys and little caps and gauntlet gloves, and later on riding puttees and full wool riding suits, herringbone riding suits, and canvas riding suits. And
when did the leathers come in?
Leathers really, back in the early 20s, late teens. They were like car coats, 3/4 length jackets, but they were horsehide, much heavier than they are today. The typical leather jacket, as everyone equates with a Harley Davidson rider right now, really came into effect right after World War II. A lot of the soldiers, mostly airmen, came back from the military wearing bomber-style jackets. And it's a very functional jacket. It's short, it won't ride up, it's sleeve closures. It was a natural. So in 1947, we thought, hey, we can do that. So we did. So we've been making leather jackets ever since.
Let's jump forward a little bit. 1993 was this huge reunion, the 90th anniversary.
Right.
Did you have any idea how big that was going to be?
I knew it would be a major event, but I had no way of really understanding the magnitude of it. And the great thing about that event is this city.
Yes.
Because I've talked to riders from all over the world, and their experiences in this city with the friendly people and all the help the riders had on finding places and doing things that they were welcome, they understood it. The parade was an emotional event for all of us, with the flag waving and all the people on the bridge.
I love this shot that we're showing right now. Look at that, the mounted officer, and he's just directing. That's amazing.
For the 90th.
We wanted to bring them right back here because this is where they belong. This is where it all started.
I didn't know anything about it. I was driving back, leaving California, coming back to Wisconsin, and I was just driving, and I would see bikers with Milwaukee or bust signs on their back or on the bike. I thought, what the heck is going on? And I came right in the middle of all that stuff.
During the 90th, I was a grounds manager at the Summerfest grounds, and I am next week for the 95th as well.
As we tape this, we should mention that, yes.
I remember being there in the grounds when the gates opened up at 9 o'clock or so, and these bikers coming in, and tears were streaming down their eyes. They said, you know, we've never been any place where we've been greeted like this. This was incredible. People were having signs and they were hanging off of bridges, and these guys were crying.
Oh, it was the sound must have been amazing. We're standing there and listening to these bikes come in. Now, quickly, because we have less than a minute now, and as we tape this in a week, the 95th will be here.
Right.
How many people are expected?
120,000.
Wow.
Easily.
And that's maybe a low ball. And we're going to bring back thousands of riders. I'm riding with my family from Riverside, California, and we'll all be on beautiful new anniversary Harleys with hundreds, maybe thousands of riders behind us.
Darn it, my invitation got lost in the mail again. I hate it when that happens. But there are people coming from different parts of the country. Are there groups coming in?
There's routes throughout the perimeter of the U.S., and different executives are coming in from major points, and we're all going to convene here.
And from more than 40 foreign countries as well.
Yeah, that's the other thing, that Harley, of course, is a name that people recognize the world over.
Right.
Thank you so much, Tom, Willie. This has just been a delight. It's a show I've wanted to do since we started, and good luck to you, and we look forward to seeing the 100th anniversary.
Well, thank you. And
Thanks
you can
very
tell,
much. It was great.
we have no loss of words with this company.
I Remember Milwaukee is brought to you in part by Kopp's Frozen Custard Stands, where a portion of the Thursday's Child Flavor of the Day receipts is donated to the healthcare needs of the world's most disadvantaged youth. Kopp's has served Milwaukee area neighborhoods since 1950.